1380 KCIM Sports presents KCIM Sports Rewind. A look back at the week in high school sports. Brought to you by St. Anthony Rehab Services. Here's Sports Director Jeff Blankman, John Ryan, and Jeff Honnold.
Well, the grand plan for KCIM Sports Rewind today was to talk about a great NBA championship for Nick Nurse and the Toronto Raptors. All right, what's plan B, guys?
That's why we don't plan things. That's why this is an unscripted show.
We came this close to be to talking about that.
Leonard, back up Van Fleet. Van Fleet kicks it out Lowry. Lowry for the win. Won't go. And there'll be a Game 6 in Oakland.
Yeah, unfortunately, that tip by Draymond Green at the end, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, that and the three, I think that...
Steph Curry.
No, wasn't Steph.
Klay Thompson?
Klay Thompson, yeah, sorry. I'm kind of out of it this morning. The three that Klay Thompson hit last night was pretty big.
Did you notice he's throwing this morning?
You know why? Because he just got out of bed. That's why. He just rolled out of bed.
I did. I absolutely... The other way? There we go. All
right. You sure people don't want to
just... You don't need to see me today because I might be nodding off and hitting the microphone.
You sure people don't want to look at the mic instead of Jeff?
It was a tough game last night, though. It seemed like the Warriors would pull ahead, Toronto would come back, and then finally, a horrible injury by Kevin Durant last night. Ugh. You got to feel sorry for that. He came out, hit what, a couple of three-pointers at the beginning of the game. You're thinking, uh-oh, Durant's back, and he's at full strength. Then the Achilles injury happened, and, boy, that just changed everything, I think, for the Warriors. They're thinking for the games 6 and 7.
It did, and I will say this, too. Embarrassed for the Toronto fans last night, which have been great.
Yeah.
The fact that they were cheering his injury early on last night. It wasn't a few. It was a vast majority of the crowd. In fact, their players had to go out and stop them.
I did not see that.
Well, you wonder if they're thinking it's just that calf and didn't realize, but still it's an injury.
It's an injury.
And the worst part about that injury, that's a really tough injury to come back from.
Yep.
You're looking at probably at least a year of just rehab alone before you're doing anything. So that's a tough injury.
Yeah. So hopefully he'll come back. And, that was a bad situation all the way around. I thought it was really cool the way the Raptors players kind of got out on the floor right away and shut their crowd up and got them to understand the seriousness of the situation.
Yeah, I did not see that part, and I didn't see any replays of that.
It wasn't the clap of, oh, we hope you're okay. It was an all-out roar of cheer throughout the entire building that he was injured and stuff. So
got to watch some of it. Neat press box over in Denison.
No,
you got the air conditioned, so every time I turned, they were down. So I think it's probably good for them when I quit watching, because then all of a sudden they come roaring back. They were down 10 most of the time I turned. But that's interesting when you're able to watch basketball during a baseball broadcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's always fun. I noticed there was a former teammate of Nick Nurse's, I think, on the sideline. Wearing a Kemper jersey on the sidelines.
You got a picture posted on Facebook with Drake.
Yeah, I've actually got it right here on my phone that somebody sent to me last night during the game. So I'll put it up here, and we'll see if people can get that.
I'm not sure if we can get that, but that was pretty cool. I saw that last night as well. But so we were hoping to talk about an NBA championship, but they got to go back Game 6 now to Oakland, which is never an easy place to win. You got to think, though, the Warriors, they're feeling pretty bruised and battered right about now.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they're kind of out of gas. Even watching them walk off the floor last night, and watching their general manager kind of break down, talking about Durant. This team might have been a team that had that one last gasp as a champion, and they are a great team. One last gasp to send it back home. But the other thing is it's hard to believe that they can go 0-3 at home, though, in the NBA Finals this year, and that would be if they lost Game 6. They would be 0-3 at home.
But when you watch it, Durant was able to take a lot of the pressure off Steph Curry.
Yes.
And get him some fresher legs.
Yeah.
Well, you watch him at the end of the games, and he's amazing, but he's worn out. He's done. And I think that's what Toronto's able to do, is just run him ragged, and by the end of the game, he's not able to hit those shots.
And that's, on the other hand, it wouldn't totally shock me to see Game 7. I mean, I can easily see Game 7 happening. It reminds me like when the Celtics were doing I used to watch NBA basketball, and the Celtics were good. Larry Bird, McHale. And when they started to decline, that's what happened. The injuries started to take a toll, and it's just the wear of the playoff run and the 7-game series and all of that. The Warriors are starting to look a little like that.
You think about it, 5 straight years in the NBA Finals, 5 straight years now they've had a longer season than anybody else besides Cleveland with LeBron James over those 4 years that he was there, and those two met in the NBA Finals. So, yeah, there's a little bit of an exhaustion probably setting in for them. But give Nick Nurse a lot of credit. I mean, you watch the game plans he's put together. Everybody thinks of Golden State as this team that's up and down shooting threes. They kind of run you out of the building when they get going. Toronto's been the quicker team. They've been the faster team. They've been the team pushing the tempo. They've done to Golden State what Golden State generally does to everybody else, and that's coaching. That's absolutely coaching. He has been masterful throughout most of this NBA Finals.
Their defense has been really good. I mean,
Yes.
a game was 106-105 last night, but you're never going to hold the Warriors down to 80 points a game.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, he's won everywhere he's gone.
Yeah, he has.
The guy's a winner.
Yep.
No doubt about it.
Yep, so they go to Game 6 coming up on Thursday.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I do need to say this. I've had a lot of people asking me over the last month, why we haven't had Nick Nurse on Rewind on a Tuesday morning. He's a little bit busy right now, folks. We had him on back during the preseason after he had gotten the job and in the summer and stuff. The conversation, he's busy through the season. We've kind of left him alone. We'll get together with him coming up after the NBA Finals. It might not be the week after the NBA Finals,
It might be a few months down the road.
Yeah, but, we're just trying not to pester him too much because he's getting bothered by a lot of national media and everything else all the time. So you kind of want to let the guy kind of focus on the job and stuff. But, we certainly will talk with Nick Nurse again. We've had him on this show before, and we certainly aren't done talking to him, that's for sure.
I can tell you for one thing, if my phone goes off and it IDs Jeff Blankman, I take that phone call right away. There's no waiting about it, man. Jeff's calling. I'm on there.
Oh, really? I got a swipe button. you just don't know words he's sending me now.
Do not contact order.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say you had my number blocked.
Oh, no, not at all. So, we will get a hold of Nick, but it's ridiculous to think that he's going to join us during the season and during the midst of all of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude is chasing a world championship.
Yeah.
We're going to let him go.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will have him on and stuff, but it'll be at a little bit of a later date.
The scary part is knowing Nick, he would probably figure out a way to do it.
He probably would, yep.
Maybe record at some point. He'd probably make time, but again, I applaud you guys that not even pushing that. Just let him go ahead and do what he does, and we'll talk to him later.
He's got bigger fish to fry. Yeah. He's got to figure out how to
we're pretty big fish. Look over here at the camera. I'm a pretty big fish.
Has he seen the numbers for Rewind? Does he know that?
We get a lot of viewers here late.
Yeah.
So we will catch up with Nick eventually, but you did something interesting this last weekend, too. You were running across the state of Iowa, Relay Iowa.
Yep.
And, man, I don't know. You don't look like you're ready for retirement here. You came back. You were pretty spry after this one. I remember seeing you after the first one.
Yes.
And you look completely exhausted.
50 pounds heavier and hadn't run in 20 years, and it was rough.
Really? That was that bad, huh?
Yeah, that was that bad. So, no, this one went really well. Had a great time, got a great crew that I run with and have in all the 4 years that I've done this. It's been a little different each year, and this year was, only a little bit different than it's been in the past, but another great crew to run with.
Does it help going into retirement knowing that you got little Chloe there that can probably take over and do better since she was smoking people on Saturday?
Yeah, it does. As long as she decides that she's going to do it.
Oh, she'll
next
do
year.
it as long as Mom lets her.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I know they keep teasing me that I'll be back, but I think mentally I knew that before going into this one that it was time to put up the running shoes, not to give up running by any means, but I'll be honest with you, I was okay yesterday. I feel it today. Not the soreness and stuff, but the lack of sleep for 3 days. I'm literally struggling to stay awake right now.
Bit of a delayed reaction going on there.
Yeah, the body's finally realizing how little bit of sleep you get, and when you're busy trying to cover things and stuff, it's just really hard to recover from. So.
First of all, loved following Jeff Storyahan's pictures of you.
Yes.
running. Jeff seems to take the best pictures of you all the time and post
He
those.
takes the best pictures, period.
So,
he finds Blankman at the right moments. And if you get the private pictures that Jeff sends you, they're even better.
No, I'm not on that mailing list.
Oh, they're good.
I do need to explain the whole toe cramp one that he put up. I wasn't actually a toe cramp. I can't remember. You might know it, but I can't remember the name of the muscle that runs underneath your calf. I tweaked that a little bit on Sunday, and it got stiff on me during one of my runs. So I was trying to stretch, and I had grabbed my foot, and I had it up on the dash, and I was yanking on the toe and the foot trying to stretch that so I could go back out and run again. And Jeff, of course, got his camera out and took a quick picture of me there, and I look like I'm in a lot of pain because it was hurting pretty good. But and then he put on there that it was a toe cramp.
So what's the hardest part about that? Is it just physically draining? Is it your legs that hurt the most?
Actually,
is it the lack of sleep?
I'll be honest with you, the first 2 years that I ran it was the legs. By Sunday morning, I could barely walk because they were so stiff and sore. But this year, I trained well enough that my legs never really got tired or sore or anything like that. I ran a lot from March on. The hardest part is the lack of sleep. I 4.5, maybe 5 hours from Friday morning at 4 o'clock in the morning until we started driving back Sunday, early afternoon. So it's just it's a lack of sleep, trying to fight through being just sleepy tired all the time.
Yeah. Well, you run like what, 2 miles in a stretch? Is that how you break that up?
Yeah, every team does it differently. The way our team does it is like, for example, the first section that the group I was in ran was from Anthon over to Arthur, which is a 36-mile stretch. So it was 6 people in the vehicle. Each person in the vehicle had to run 6 miles at some point. So I try to break mine down so that, I don't want to do 2 sets of 3 and then have somebody else doing a bunch of ones. So if all of a sudden all of us people that are doing 2 sets of 3 are done, then that poor person that's doing ones has 4 miles left, and they're the only one left, so they got to go out and run a bunch of ones and, run 4 miles in a row. So I ran mainly 2s this weekend. So almost every time I went out and I ran 2. Sometimes I'd run a 1. Like if we had a 5-mile section, where you had to run 5 miles out of it, I might do like a 2 and then a 1.5, something like that. So,
so you really broke it up into manageable distance.
Yes,
I bet
absolutely.
I bet that time in between runs got really short by Sunday.
Yeah, it did. And the crazy thing is I run with some really, really good runners. We have some Boston marathoners in there, some guys that run, 6-minute or under 6-minute miles. So you don't get a lot of recovery time. And it's tough because you get inside the back of a minivan or something, you're cramped up. So every time you pull over to the side of the road, you got to get out and try to walk around so that you don't get stiff and sore. But, every group kind of does. There are groups that everybody runs a half mile, so you get 2 vehicles going together, and every half mile there's somebody out running. It's just whatever, your team decides to do. So
how many miles total?
I did 32.5 myself over the weekend. It's 339 miles total. From Sioux City, where we start, to Dubuque, where we finish.
Wow. And by the way, I was talking to him the other day, and he goes, got my first roadkill. And I'm like, I don't know what your lingo is with this whole thing, but explain what a roadkill is, and you got your first one.
I did. Every team writes roadkill on the side. It's every team that you pass. So if you pass a team, that's considered a roadkill. So it was kind of an interesting story, as I told John. You're really supposed to, everybody runs with a GPS. So you're supposed to run to the next person that's going to run. And they wait for you where, like, if I said I was going to run 2 miles, our vehicle would drive up, stop 2 miles ahead, and then I would run to the vehicle, and the next person would be waiting out, and we'd do a handoff, and they'd take off running. But there was a team this year that was just randomly dropping people off and letting them run without their other runner being there. Well, they dropped some guy off about 200 meters in front of me, and it made me a little bit mad because their other runner was way, way behind me, and he just took off running. And I kind of got a little bit upset, and I ran a faster half mile to 3/4 of a mile than I probably should ever run. But the anger came out in me, and I passed him, and so I got my only roadkill of my 4-year career. So it's a great way to retire.
There you
my
go.
only roadkill.
So were they just trying to let guys run randomly, and because it doesn't count unless the GPS is there, right?
Well, I think what they were doing is I think they were dropping a bunch of their people off, and then they would go back and pick them up where they ended and just drive the GPS ahead and stuff ahead, so that they were trying to speed things up. So
technically they were running, but they were
running the entire difference, but they weren't running it the way
they were in a relay.
Yeah, and the weird thing about it was they were keeping roadkill, so they counted me as a roadkill, even though nobody actually technically passed me, because the guy that passed me was driving in a vehicle when I got passed. So that was the part that kind of, when you figured out that was the stuff that was going on, again, you made you mad. So it made me feel really good to go ahead and pass that guy. So, yeah.
So no more next year.
No more. I know the team thinks that I'm coming back, but mentally I will put it this way. Every year I ran it, I wanted to do better, and I wanted to do it the way that I did it this year. This year I got through feeling really good. I ran my fastest miles on a consistent basis and felt really good about the way I ran it. So I think it's good year to just be able to step away and be done.
Quit before you walk away going, man, I never should have done that.
Right.
It's
absolutely.
Still enjoyable at that point.
Yeah.
Good memories going on.
Get an hour and a half of sleep on the independent, hallway floor that's rock hard at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday night, and then getting up an hour and a half later to go run again. I love it while I'm doing it, but I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah. So Relay Iowa in the books for this year. So we'll talk more. KCIM Sports Rewind coming up. Got some baseball and softball from last night on the way.
As the athletes at your house prepare.
Slow down, slow down, slow down, slow down. You need to slow down, slow down. You need to slow.
Will be under the direct supervision of a certified and licensed healthcare professional in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
You know that phone that's always nearby, and for some people, it's absolutely glued to their hands? That's your radio. You get KCIM streaming live right there. And 1380kcim.com has all your news, weather, sports, and funeral announcements anytime you need. No waiting and free of charge. If you've got a phone, you've got a radio. And you've got Western Iowa's information leader in classic hits, 1380 AM and 95.1 FM. KCIM. It is KCIM Sports Rewind. Of course, we do have that picture now that you were talking about earlier, that the picture of Drake. Yeah. And who was the gentleman in the picture?
Frank Moloch.
Frank Moloch.
Yeah, wearing a Nick Nurse Kemper jersey. So thanks to Craig Lux. He was the one that somebody must have texted that to him last night, and he texted it to me while I was doing the Kemper softball game and let me know who it was. So that was really cool. The story I had heard, by the way, was that that Drake was actually going to be wearing a Kemper jersey. They had sent him a Kemper jersey, and he said that he'd be wearing it, but that must not have ended up happening. Another real quick, cool story. Mike McCaffrey from Carroll High told me a really neat Nick Nurse story here a little over a week ago. I was setting up to do a ball game, a Kemper softball game. I think it was last week, and Nick told me a nice story. You see Nick Nurse out there with his glasses on during the games. He actually had laser eye surgery. Like a couple of years ago or something like that. Yeah. So he doesn't need the glasses. But his mom called him one time after a game and contacted him and says, "Where were you tonight? Were you feeling okay? I didn't see you on the sidelines. Are you okay?" Well, he was coaching, but his mom didn't see him because she didn't recognize him without the glasses. So those glasses are not lensed. He wears the glasses on the side of the court so that his mom knows where he's at when they flash the camera over to the bench.
Can pick him out.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a pretty cool story.
That's a pretty cool story. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Thanks to Mike McCaffrey for giving me that update. So.
Well, I know Randy Snyder told stories about, you have big brothers picking on little brothers, hanging out with the Nurse family, things like that. So that was pretty funny, some of the stuff that he was talking about.
Tell him he'd never make anything of himself. Hey, Randy.
Nick's big brother and Randy are throwing Cheerios at him and doing like the picking on him and stuff like that. Yeah, you'll never amount to anything. Yeah, look at him now.
He's not bailing hay, Randy.
So is it Jim Nurse? Was that the older brother that was picking on him?
Probably, I think.
Okay. I was going to say, I know Jim from me coaches down at Coon, and then also, of course, officiates in the area. So I've gotten to know Jim pretty well over the last couple of years. So
it's cool. I interviewed Nick years ago at the old 529 Club. We were doing something when he got named the manager of the Iowa Energy.
Yes.
So I interviewed Nick at that night. I mean, he was the same guy on the phone that was the same guy that night. I mean,
absolutely.
Just down to earth, nice guy.
Yeah, he is. Every time we've had him on, and we've had him on several times over the years through his entire, coaching career with his travels and everything, and he has always been as classy as can be. Absolutely.
I've certainly had some coaches that that we've interviewed, even from Iowa and Iowa State. I hate to say it, but they're like, "Yeah, I got to go here, make it quick," and doing some of that stuff, and it's just kind of like. Yeah. It just leaves you with the wrong impression.
There was a former Iowa basketball coach on the men's side that, I'm glad I will never probably ever have to interview again. So,
as an Iowa fan, we're glad you don't have to. We're glad he's gone.
I'm not going to say his name, but I think every Iowa fan out there
the only
knows.
guy that can fail up. every time he failed, he got promoted. So unless this last one, then you guys legs cut out.
You can call New Mexico a fail up from Iowa.
Well, they went to UCLA, so that's a fail up. But that's a big fail there.
Yeah, like no names are necessary now on that one. So
he's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he didn't leave too many favorites in his wake, that's for sure. So let's talk about local baseball, softball. Last night you were out doing some games over in Denison.
Yeah, what a thriller for the Kemper softball team last night. Had 2 hits through 6 innings, trailed a ranked Denison Schleswig team 6-2 going into the 7th inning, and then that top of the 7th inning might have taken as long as the rest of the game. 10 runs on 5 hits and just 1 error. You felt really sorry in a way. Even Coach Bowman said it after the game. Sarah Heilson's a 2-time All-State pitcher for them. Walked 13 in the game last night. Probably about 6 of those in the 7th inning last night. Just couldn't find the strike zone all of a sudden and couldn't get an out. And a lot of that came with 2 outs in that inning.
Was she missing by a lot, or was she missing just a little bit?
She had some wild pitches that were really high. She wasn't real close to the strike zone.
So once the confidence goes,
and she had some issues throughout the game. But at that 7th inning, it was really, really bad for her, and you kind of felt for her. And then Kemper got the bats going. Credit Kendall Hilgenberg kind of got the rally started. Anna Waniger crushed one up the first base side that got gloved by the first baseman for the first out to lead off the inning. And then Kendall came up, was down 0-2, and hit a shot out into left center field for a base hit. And then the onslaught just kind of started from there. There was a bunch of walks in a row, and they eventually got back to Waniger again, and she gets the big hit to put them up by 2, 8-6, and then it just kind of kept landsliding from there, and eventually they got up 12-6. And Chloe Ventiker struggled a little bit with some high pitches early in the game in the first inning, and then she settled in from the 2nd inning on and pitched pretty well. Did take a shot off of the thigh area in the 6th with 2 outs in the 6th inning, and they replaced her, not because of the shot. Coach Bowman told me afterwards that Chloe was fine, but she was kind of starting to wear down a little bit, and they were looking for the right spot to put Carly Carpenter, an 8th grader who pitches really well, in. And Carpenter came in and got out of some trouble in the bottom of the 6th, giving up just 1 run, making it from 5-2 to 6-2, and then she came in and pitched the 7th and gave up an unearned run in the 7th inning, and that was it, and closed the door. And that's a really good win for them. Now, by the way, Kemper's got a doubleheader down in Harlan today. I got a text right before the start of the show. They're moving that for softball and baseball to a 3:30 start time for the first game of the varsity doubleheader because of the potential for weather tonight. So I have a Ballard Carroll doubleheader coming up tonight, the first game of that in softball tonight. So we'll keep our eyes and ears open if that changes as well. But the Kemper doubleheaders down at Harlan tonight are now 3:30 starts.
It always stuns me, those last minute or those last inning wins when big rallies happen. Of course, the pressure's on, but the at bats get a little better.
Yeah,
the pitch selection gets a little more meticulous, and that's what kind of helps to add to the frustration of a pitcher too. And if you're getting people that are swinging at pitches you've thrown all night, and all of a sudden they're not in that last inning for some reason, that just adds to it.
They laid off the rise ball, which had given them some problems, throughout the early part of the game. That's kind of what she would go to. When she was in a little bit of trouble, when she'd walk the bases loaded a couple of different times throughout the game, she'd kind of get on the rise ball and get a strikeout and kind of get herself settled back down. In that 7th inning, they were able to lay off of that. And then, of course, not long after Waniger hit the shot that got him the lead, Allie Mertz hit a couple of run home run. Let me look at my numbers again. A 2-run home run, and then the very next batter, Kenzie Schoen, went deep. So back-to-back home runs in that 7th inning. And at that point, you saw all the energy, I think, come out of the Denison kids. Now, I did say during the broadcast, hey, Kemper just scored 10 in the top half of the inning, so even though you got a 6-run lead, don't start to celebrate too early if you're Kemper, because this one's not over. But you kind of saw the deflated Denison team come up in that 7th inning. So
looking like they already had been beaten maybe at that point. Also, Kemper baseball falls at Denison last night.
Well, boy, a heartbreaker for the Knights. They go down early. They got a run right away in the first, then went down 1-4. And Cole Eulenkamp was pitching, and it just wasn't a good matchup. They were able to time him up, and it just didn't work out well for him. So he went on out to left field, and they brought in William Schinkelberg, who did a fantastic job. The freshman came in from the 2nd inning on and really shut down everything and got into he would actually get the first 2 outs pretty quickly. and then struggle. He would walk somebody, so he had base runners on just about every inning, but out of trouble, didn't give up any runs. They got the top of the 7th, and he was starting to run out of gas a little bit. Got had 2 guys on with an out, and there was a sharply hit ball and a tailor-made double play that was an error. It was late in the game, and just wasn't able to recover. Walked there, kind of run out of gas. They went ahead and went to Hugebeck, and he got a strikeout, but bases loaded. He walked in the tying run, and then the winning run walked as well. So, they scored those winning runs, 3 runs with 1 hit in the 7th. But a young Knight team, you're going to see this kind of thing. Coach took a lot of time with them after the game, discussing it. They got a doubleheader with Harlan again today, so want to make sure they understand that they had this game in hand, and with a 2-run lead in the 7th inning, all you really had to do was finish, and they weren't able to do that. But
back-to-back walks to tie and then lose the game.
Yeah,
that's a tough way to go. I mean, you got to let your defense work behind you, and that's not letting them do it.
Right.
No, and they weren't close. I mean, the last pitch was definitely a ball, and the zone was really good all night. The guys were aggressive. They got 2 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th, and 2 in the 7th to get the lead. So looked like they had a 2-run lead going in the 7th. They had things locked up. They had 1 out and a tailor-made double play, but again, you just got to finish that and to move on. So good play, though. Thrilling
win for the Kemper softball team. Disappointing loss for the Kemper baseball team last night. We want to talk about the Merchants here real quick. We'll do that coming up next on KCIM Sports Rewind.
As the athletes at your house... in the newly renovated sports performance facility. If an injury is keeping your athlete out of the game, call St. Anthony Rehabilitation Services at 794-5000 for sports injury and treatment rehab.
KCIM Sports Rewind. It's Jeff Blankman, Sports Director Jeff Honnold, and John Ryan with you. Let's talk some Carroll Merchants now. Jeff, Jeff Blankman, you and I had a chance to go over before some practices recently and talk to all the Merchants players, most of the Merchants players. We haven't gotten to all of them yet, but I think there's 16 profile interviews called Meet the Merchants up on our KCIM Facebook page, or actually on the website at 1380kcim.com. What a great bunch of kids.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast getting to interview these guys, talking to them about where they grew up, family, hobbies, movies, things, video games that they like to play, just kind of getting a little bit of a history about them. You learn why they love the game of baseball and why they decided to come play in Carroll, and you just learn a lot about them in these interviews.
It's kind of hard
easy guys to cheer for.
Yeah. Look at so much local flavor. It's so much fun when they used to come up there and you say, all right, you're from California. What do you think about Iowa and the sweet corn? Man, I interviewed a guy the other day from Solon. I mean, there's nothing new here. He just moved to the other side of the state. But really fun group of young guys and really outgoing group, too.
Yeah, a number of guys are actually from the Midwest. There's a guy from Lincoln. I said, well, Blankman's going to have a lot to talk about about that. Minneapolis, around that area, a lot around the Midwest. But I did interview Chase Costa, is it?
Yeah.
From Hilo, Hawaii.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance yet.
He wound up at Cedar Rapids to go to college. So there was a coach from Hawaii that actually brought over a couple of players from Hilo. I said, baseball's huge over in Hawaii.
Yep.
So what's the biggest adjustment? Obviously, he's just like, no hesitation, the weather.
Yeah.
He goes, it's cold here.
Yeah.
So
he looked like he was a little chilly Saturday, and it was a little chilly Saturday for the ball game, but and you see the resilient group. That's the fun thing to watch. They fight the entire game, and it's been fun.
Well, take Sunday. What he said, about 575 was the attendance on Sunday.
Yeah, 575. Been over 600 a few times. Yeah,
good crowds on hand for all those home games. But that was a game. Peak of Ames is kind of the team this year in the league, isn't it?
Yeah, their model's a little different. They don't really do it the way the Merchants do. These kids come in and pay. They are a performance-based place where you pay to play there and you learn. They do a lot of more practicing type situations. So you don't. Last year, I know they weren't getting the same players all the time. They were shuffling the guys in and out. Looks like they've settled that down a little bit now. But so it's a different type. You see a lot of more D1 kids in that area. But the Merchants really held their own, and they think they are going to be able to compete with that.
Yeah, I noticed there were some kids from like SDSU and some from some much bigger baseball schools in that peak one. But I tell you what, the Merchants didn't give up. They fell down early, and I thought the games were 7 innings, but on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you said they go a full 9.
Yeah, the weekends we got to work. We got the full 9. And that's you don't think that 2 innings makes a difference. Just try to be up there when you need to go to the restroom. It's a long 2 innings.
Yeah, Merchants played well. They came from behind several times, thought they had gave themselves a chance to win, and the game ended at 10-8 on a line out to the third baseman. That could have made a big difference. It would have brought in the 9th run anyway, and at least kept the inning alive.
Yeah, a big jump, and he used all of his reach and all of his glove to get it. That would have definitely got us a run there. So, again, they battled back. They were down, got back, got a lead, and fell behind again. Had a long inning, and I think that's what happened. The pitcher got cold. Talking to Coach afterwards, Cody said he wished he would have gotten him up and had him throw a little bit. So a long half inning, came out and just couldn't find the strike zone the second time through, and they rode him as long as they could with all these games. They're trying to save their arms as much as possible, but Cody said maybe we should have gotten him up and had him toss a little bit.
Well, they've got the Fort Dodge Gypsum Miners coming up Thursday at home, so that's the next home game about 6:35. You haven't had a chance to see them yet, I don't think, have you?
I have not seen Fort Dodge yet.
Okay.
But that'll be, again, 7 innings. We're during the weekday, so that'll be a fun game. They're at Bancroft tonight. Been playing really good. Talking with Coach Williams, and he's been great. Cody's just been outstanding, not only with the young players, but coming up and doing interviews and before games and what have you. We've been joking around a little bit, and he likes his team. He likes where they're headed. He sees a lot of upside yet with this team, and kind of getting the pieces and parts put together. They got a couple new players came in, so there are some guys left, and you see that quite often. Things pop up, and so he likes where he's at, likes where he's headed, and a lot of fun. Good time.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a fun team to watch. Great kids, too. Look for Meet the Merchants segments online at 1380kcim.com. Thursday night, they're going to be back at home. Lots more Sports Rewind. We hope to have Cody Williams on the show here coming up here pretty soon.
Absolutely.
We kind of want to do a weekly show with him to do that, to kind of catch up to date on what the Merchants are doing this year. But that's all the time we got. We got to run. We got news coming up here in a few more moments. Thanks for joining us for KCIM Sports Rewind. You can catch a podcast of this program online anytime at 1380kcim.com or the live stream videos on the Johnston Communication page or the KCIM page.
When you need to know, KCIM is the place to listen.